That was Ghost Squarehammer from the Pope Star EP. So the band are going to be headlining one of the days at Bloodstock Festival, which takes place August 10th to the 13th in Derbyshire. Headliners for the festival on the Friday are Amon Amarth. Ghost headlining the Saturday, and the Sunday night is headlined by Megadeth. Bunch of amazing bands playing. Go look at the lineup. But as that's happening very shortly, I figured that the music ruined my life, which is essentially where an artist comes in and discusses their musical upbringing, first records they got into, first shows they saw, bands that made them want to play in a band. That's what the feature is, and we've recorded one with a nameless Ghoul from Ghost. So we figured this would be the time to air it. First up, I asked the nameless Ghoul what the first album was that they bought.
First album that I bought was, I think it was Aftermath. And it could have been that I bought two at the same time, and I think that the second one should have been either Live She Cried or Live from the Hollywood Bowl with the Doors. It was technically not the first records that I got, because I got a lot of records from my brother and my mom was giving me, but the first ones that I bought myself, I remember buying Aftermath.
They're good starts.
Yeah, no, I was lucky with a lot of musical sort of input from home.
Yeah.
So
is that how you got into everything then? Did you say you have an elder brother?
Yeah.
Was he always saying, listen to this, or was it just something you'd hear? Or
right. I think that the best thing about it was that he was so much older than I was. He was 13 years older.
Okay.
So with that and him being very nice, there was never the sort of rivalry that you might have had if there was just 3 years differing. So he was always very caretaking, and it was a very liberal home as well. So my mom let him sort of babysit me.
Yeah.
And so I was around him and his pals a lot. If they were going out, they sort of took me with them.
Great.
So I sort of tagged along sometimes to parties and to shows, and he used to buy records a lot. He sort of had an infatuation with a lot of contemporary music at the time as well. So he would buy like Kim Wilde and Eurythmics and stuff like that. Kate Bush.
Amazing.
Yeah, me too. Then he was also like an avid fan of like Sex Pistols, Crass, Damned. I remember when he was like doing a little bit of research afterwards. It must have been like 86 or 85 or 86. I remember he and his friend was going to London to see the Damned, and that was like a cool thing.
Like a pilgrimage.
Yeah, and they were going here, and they were gonna go to, and they came home like had bought all new like Doc Martens and Get a Grips and studs and shirt. So back then he was sort of giving me like the records that he sort of bought in passing, like Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil. I think you like this more because I like seeing the pictures inside.
Yeah.
But back then, I really liked the songs, but I sort of tended to skip the intro because I found that a little menacing, I guess. So I always thought that, that the beginning was just like, I just skipped it right to Shout at the Devil instead.
Yeah.
Which I don't have to do nowadays.
Why particularly did you choose like the Stones and the Doors as those first purchases?
My mom is like many other moms in the sense that she's born in the 40s, obviously grew up in the 60s. So she had a lot of that age that was sort of given to me, like Hendrix and Janis Joplin, Beatles, Stones, and Pink Floyd. As far as I remember this, I was at my dad's. They were living apart, and I was there every now and then, and this was also like must have been mid-'80s, so cable wasn't something that you per automatic had, cable TV.
Yeah.
But he worked in television, and he was also very like down with technique. So he had a big dish outside that sort of picked up a lot of funny channels.
Yeah.
So every time you were there, you would sit there and watch like Rai Uno and stuff like that, and like a lot of weird stuff on TV.
Yeah.
And obviously he had like watch wrestling and Sky Channel and all these things that seemed so exotic. MTV. And I remember one day, like midday on some channel, they showed Let's Spend the Night Together, the concert film.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away. That was just like, that is, I want to do that for the rest of my life.
You're currently listening to Music Ruin My Life with a nameless ghoul from the band Ghost, where we discuss a band's an artist's musical upbringing. And in this part, I asked about the records that changed his life.
A music style that hit me like a ton of bricks was the whole extreme metal thing.
Yeah.
Let's sort of break it down to an album, actually, or to a song. It must have been 89. I not only did we have I had my brother, but my mom also had a friend who had a son who was also 10 years older than I was, and he was like an avid thrash guy. You know, every time I was there, I was always like, and he was also very kind. He was like always letting me into his room, and he was like showing me stuff, and he played guitar, and I remember, you know, he had Slayer and Creator and all that stuff it was, for me, that was a little bit more like a vision. I read about them in magazines because I used to buy Metal Hammer for the posters, but I couldn't read what it said, obviously. But I bought them, and they were actually quite expensive because they were imports. So that was something that you bought. Like, that was like, do I buy a record or do I buy like Metal Hammer? Yeah, wow. But now it's like a poster extravaganza with 10 different posters in it. So I want that. And that way I discovered a lot of things sort of visually first, and then sort of the music came later. So basically I was at their house and I was like, do you have any Guns N' Roses videos? And he was like, yeah. And I guess he saw that as like a way out of babysitting me. So he's just like, yeah, I can put something on. And then he just put like a Headbangers Ball video on, and he could sort of buzz off. And lo and behold, you had like Paradise City there. Great. Because at that point, if there was one other band I liked in 1989, it was like Rolling Stones, because they had done the Steel Wheels record. I love that one. And it was Guns N' Roses. And in the midst of this, there was this other video with another guy, or another thing, that just blew me away. And that was Sleepless Nights with King Diamond. Wow. I'd never really heard anything that was that pleasantly haunting. Like the beginning of that song. You know, and that also was one of those moments, kind of like when I was 4 and jumped around at my couch listening to like Rock You Like a Hurricane. Yeah. That riff still today, it just makes me want to jump in a sofa because it's so great. And that sort of kicked off my sort of journey into extreme metal.
You're listening to the Radio 1 Rock Show, me, Daniel P. Carter. We are currently in the middle of Music Ruin My Life, as chosen by a nameless ghoul from the band Ghost. Okay, so something that you're currently listening to a lot.
The one artist that I'm sort of tapping into, like, is right now Sia.
All right.
So
great.
we can talk about that. The thing is that I'm sort of late to the prom in a way, because both my wife and another friend of mine has been sort of plugging her for years.
Yeah.
So I've been aware of her ever since the Girl That You Lost to Cocaine is, I guess, the title.
Okay.
Isn't it?
I
am the girl that you lost to cocaine. That one. And I've always liked it, but I never sort of invested time into listening to it. And then a year ago or so, I'm sort of, when she sort of really started to like rise in prominence, or when she was really starting to be everywhere, she has just this amazing voice that I love. I'm very, very vocal driven.
Yeah.
Very good artist. I really
She's a
really like her.
fantastic writer. Her voice
Yes.
is amazing. Have you
Yes.
seen her play?
I have not. I'm yet to do that. That's one of the downsides of my job. Actually, you tend to miss out on a lot.
If ever you get the opportunity, you should.
Oh, I definitely will.
So well, this leads nicely into the next thing, which would be a band you'd most like to play shows with. But then I think we could maybe expand that to artists or bands that you'd like to collaborate with.
Oh, I mean, from a songwriter point of view, there's a big bunch of people that I sort of have on my bucket list to work with. However, I must say, without attempting to sound jaded, my experience from collaborating with people in general, meaning like people that you on paper admire,
Yeah.
that is not a guarantee for it to work out. So I'm doing that also on the side, sort of.
That's what I was going to ask you about. I wanted to know if you did songwriting, because that can be quite a liberating thing, I think. In
Yes.
the sense that I always found when I did it, it was liberating in the sense that there would be certain things that I would write and I'd be like, there's no way I can deliver this. I can't sell this. But in the hands of somebody else, it could be like this beautiful thing that blossoms and really works for them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I got to the point where it was a good thing, because I stopped being quite as precious about things. I would just write something and let it go.
Yeah.
Off into the world. And whether anything came of it or not, then great. But
The thing is that sometimes when I've done writing with the intention of sort of throwing it someplace else, it ended up being ghost stuff anyways.
that's great, though.
So sometimes it actually works thinking that you're not going to do it yourself. And then you write something that is actually closer to the heart sometimes. And you can sort of rewrite it in a way that sort of makes it like, well, this will make a perfect ghost chorus. Or
Yeah.
and because of time issues as well, all my effort sort of goes into ghost. And yeah, I like, as opposed to popular belief in my social circuits, I actually like collaborating with people. If I get to choose whom I collaborate with, that's the key.
Yeah.
I think it's rare that you find that collaboration within a band. It's very seldom. And those marriages usually are very well documented, as in like Lennon-McCartney.
Yeah.
And some of those. But generally, it's very hard to write with especially when you're an instrumentalist. I'd like to think that one of the reasons why I am able to write a certain way is because I am a guitar player, but I don't necessarily think I'm very unprecious that way. Like this guitar part, maybe we should just play it on the bass instead. Wait a minute, no, it's a piano thing, right? Great, there we have it. Yeah, and this vocal part that I tell the singer to sing, if it sort of doesn't work really well, it could be like, I'll just nick that part of the melody and just play that once in the solo instead.
Yeah.
That's part of the recipe in a way, that you can sort of orchestrate everything without like having to deal with like personal dilemmas of not having their little thing in there. Yeah. Luckily, for playing shows with bands, I've also had the great pleasure of being mentored by some of my favorite bands in the world, who've been very, very nice and very supporting. Metallica, obviously, Iron Maiden, Foo Fighters. They've definitely all made myself and the band and the crew really feel like welcome. And I've always been, for as long as I've been doing this, especially when, because I was sort of given a good hand at somewhat later than I guess most other bands starting out when they're 20 and just screw everything up, and then they sort of wake up 7 years later like, oh, what happened?
Yeah.
Whereas I was close to 30 when we started touring. Part of my sort of touring regime and touring sort of ethics comes from sitting with Live After Death, looking through all those dates, looking through all the things and lists of stuff, and like, this is exactly what I want to do. This is how you they're big in America. Then you have to play in Saginaw, and you play in like 4 dates in Wisconsin, and so that was like, okay, that's how you tour. And some of my first really big shows were like Metallica on that album. That also had set it like a standard. So now, being mentored by those bands and being close to them and close to their crew and watching that operation, it's for me, very, very inspiring. And I'm happy that I have the luxury of seeing that. No, Metallica was also one of my brother's favorite bands. So there's definitely moments where, because he passed away, basically just before Ghost happened. So there's definitely moments when you're there where it's, have that feeling of, like, look at this, like, I'm here, watching this, being asked to. I just played on this stage. Now, there's James Hetfield, playing that song.
And so, for the last part of Music Ruined My Life, I asked the nameless Ghoul from the band Ghost the song that he's most proud of.
This might sound a little bit strange, but usually when I'm on tour, I don't think too much about your own material. It's something that you perform, and it sort of goes through your body. And luckily, when you do have a crowd and you do have an audience, and there's that sort of feedback and that circulation, at least myself, I don't find it sort of tedious playing songs that you played 500 times, because you have a recipient and there's a conversation. It sort of gets new every time. Your mind is sort of not only focusing on the music. Cirice is definitely one of those where there's a natural sort of movement in it, because it has pauses and it has. It's just, I just find it, even now looking back on it, it's like, that got quite okay. Yeah, I like it.
Thank you to a nameless Ghoul from the band Ghost. The band will be headlining the Saturday at Bloodstock Festival. That's August 12th. Festival runs the 10th to the 13th of August.